So the mother of all bull runs might just be beginning in 33 days because of what Jerome Powell was forced to do today. Now, everybody's talking about this, but I think a lot of people are missing the real reasons for why Jerome Powell was forced to cut rates once again today. And it's not just the fact that he cut rates that has me really interested. He admitted that in 33 days, on December 1st, quantitative tightening is officially over. Now, that's the news. Everybody's talking about it. But why? That's the biggest story. I think this is what I think is getting missed. We can see that we've seen more global central bank rate cuts in 2025 than we saw in the aftermath of the 2008 global financial crisis. Just think about that for a minute. Everybody's thinking, all right, markets are at all-time highs. Everything's hunky-dory. Why are central banks cutting interest rates faster than they were after 2008? This chart is incriminating when we start looking at things from that angle, especially when you start to consider that the reverse repo market right now is blowing out. This specific chart is looking at the spread of SOFR and the federal funds rate. And we can see this gap has not been this large since March of 2020. And what happened in March of 2020? Anyone remember? Of course, the global excuse to turn the money printers on. So I think that's an interesting chart from an economic standpoint, but so is this. This here's the chart of the S&P 500. Now, firstly, appreciate how bananas this chart looks. But then I think what's more interesting is we have never seen a loosening cycle, an easing cycle begin with the markets looking the way they are. Because right now, it looks insane, and I think this could mean some pretty wild things for all markets, including Bitcoin. I got a lot to talk about today. Before we get into any of that, I want to play a quick little snippet of some of the highlights that you might have missed from Uncle Jerome Powell earlier today.
To 3 3/4 to 4%. Conditions in the labor market appear to be gradually cooling, and inflation remains somewhat elevated. The shutdown of the federal government will weigh on economic activity while it persists, but these effects should reverse after the shutdown ends. If you were to see data that suggested that the labor market's strengthening or even that it's stabilizing, that would certainly play into our decisions going forward. There were strongly differing views about how to proceed in December. A further reduction in the policy rate at the December meeting is not a foregone conclusion.
Okay, so that's the specific line that has a lot of people, let's just say, very, very interested about what comes next. But I think the signal here is not actually in that little highlights clip at all. It's actually in something else that Jerome Powell said regarding quantitative tightening, because I think this is really important to be aware of. Because, again, we all know interest rate cuts, they've just started. Rate cuts are obviously very important to look at, but so is when the money printers start. I've got a few charts that show us just how important this is here in a moment, but let's quickly read this sentence here. The committee decided to conclude the reduction of its aggregate securities holdings on December 1st. So we are moving from restrictive monetary policy to supportive monetary policy, and this is going to be incredibly bullish for any assets, in particular, our favorite little Bitcoin. I've got a couple of new charts I haven't actually showed you guys before. Let's start here with this one. So this is looking at Bitcoin and the growth of global M2 money supply. I think this one's going to be really important to have a look at because you can see in those areas of red on the chart, this is when, typically all markets are struggling. Liquidity is being pulled back. Everybody's risk adverse. Everybody's pulling out of all markets. But we can see what I think's interesting here is when the green really spikes aggressively. This is indicating year-on-year growth of the money supply is exploding. You can see what happens. Typically, the price of Bitcoin, by the way, is in the orange on this chart. I tried to clean it up here. So we've got just the Bitcoin chart in orange, and then we've got the green and the red, which shows is liquidity expanding or tightening. Now, what I think is really interesting here is we've seen global M2 increase over the past year or so, but we haven't hit the parabolic phase in this 4-year cycle. And it's the parabolic phase of liquidity expanding is when things get really interesting. This is when Bitcoin enters those final 6 to 12 months of its bull run. So again, to answer the most popular question right now in October, because it's October 29th and Bitcoin is down on the month, believe it or not. I know, I get it. I hyped up October. I have for months. I apologize. If we end in the red, I'll be royally wrong, but I do still think Q4, it's Bitcoin's best quarter. Maybe what we didn't do in October, we're going to do in November. The stars just kind of seem to be aligning here, but we're not here talking about tea leaves or stars or astrology. I want to talk about what's actually happening in the market. Now, I'm the first one to say, look, a lot of these indicators, this is not a technical analysis channel. It never will be. I'll never be selling you a trading course to get rich. But I do think the CME gaps is an interesting metric. A lot of these gaps have been filled historically. I believe over 30 of them. And I think the recent shakeout we saw this morning might have just been the final rinse. I think it could have been your last chance to buy Bitcoin under $110,000. I've actually never said that before. So there you go. I'm on the record. That could have been your last chance to buy Bitcoin at 110. We'll see how silly I look in a moment when I pull up the chart. But I think now that we filled that gap in the CME market, now that we have confirmation that not only more rate cuts are probably coming, again, Jerome did say it's not a foregone conclusion, but now that we do have confirmation that quantitative tightening, that's a mouthful, is ending, I don't know, guys. I'm feeling pretty bullish. That's what I will say. Bitcoin's at 110,000 big ones right now. Let's see where it goes next. I think as I started this video, looking at the broader markets, we have never, ever, 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 ever seen an easing cycle start with the charts looking the way they are right now. Because let's make sure we're on the same page right now. This is looking like a melt up. This is looking wild. This here's the S&P 500. Now, the last time we saw interest rates cut and liquidity come into the markets look like this. The S&P was down 35% in 4 days. This is where the last easing cycle started from. It was in here in March 2020. This was our last base. But look at where we're starting this cycle from. Parabolic all-time highs. Again, a lot of people say, oh, this time is never different. This time is different. Again, this is another chart that shows. I know there's a lot going on this chart. It's messy. Don't get me wrong. What I want to point your attention to is the big yellow circles. These big puppies. This shows what happens when the Fed slows down its rate hikes and it pauses. You can see every single time the Fed pauses, what does Bitcoin do in the orange? It starts moving. And then what happens in this little green box? This was rate cut time. This is the rate cuts of 2020. Look what happened to Bitcoin just a couple of months after rate cuts began. Bitcoin ripped from 10K to 65K. Again. Is history going to repeat? What do they say? Past performance is not indicative of future performance. Again, a lot of people will throw the caveats out there. I'm not going to stick a caveat on this video. I'm just going to tell you, this bull run has not even started. This chart's a cool one. It's a new one. I actually haven't found it before until earlier today when I was doing a little bit of research and deep diving for this specific video. And I think this really highlights the point. The Bitcoin bull run has not started yet. We're minus 11% since the halving. That's actually kind of wild. Okay, maybe this chart's slightly outdated. I'll tell you exactly where we are. When was the halving? It was early 2024. Was Bitcoin at 57,000? All right, we're going to fact check this chart live. Let's take a look at the price of Bitcoin. It might have been around $54,000. I think this chart holds up because if Bitcoin was, let's pull up. It was, from memory, it's April or May. It was early Q2 2024 when we saw that halving. Okay, I've already got it on the chart. Bitcoin's around 54. Okay, so fact check. We've come through on the fact check. Bitcoin was $57,000 in the 2024 halving. Right now, we're at, let's say, 110. So we've doubled. Bitcoin's 200%. It's 100% up after the halving. Compare that to prior cycles. In the first halving cycle, Bitcoin saw 7,400% returns. In the second halving cycle, plus 288. And I believe this chart here is even conservative. What I find really interesting is this third chart, the green one here. Bitcoin plus 545. So this is the change 1 year after the halving. Okay, I finally figured out what this chart is looking at. The bright colors caught me earlier today, and what do they say? You got beer goggles on at the bar at 3 a.m. in the morning. You're about 18 drinks deep. You don't really analyze what you're looking at. Maybe that's what I was doing earlier today with this big bright chart. But this is the change 1 year after the halving. Boy, I need to keep myself in check before I say something too wild. Bitcoin was down 11% 1 year after the halving. Now we're 100% up. Like I say, I think the bull run is just beginning. I think what Jerome Powell did today is a little bit more confirmation that things are about to get exciting. It's about to get wild. To Edward's comment in the chat, buy the dip, baby. Buy. That's how I feel. I might have a look at gold as well as the gold Bitcoin charts. So think of me if you missed the beginning of the live stream. Quantitative tightening officially ends in 33 days. That's what I was referring to in the title. Officially ending. I got a lot of charts I want to dive into in a moment. I think before I get incredibly wild, I think let's ground ourselves a little bit. Again, I always tell you guys before we get stupidly bullish on this channel and we start talking about wild price predictions, turn the goddamn video off if you don't firstly hold Bitcoin and then hold it correctly. So again, if you are looking for somewhere to buy your Bitcoin, I think learning about Bitcoin mining is a little bit of an underrated skill in the space. If you either want to get mining yourself and get your hands on some Bitcoin mining machines, or you simply want to take advantage of a hosted mining solution, I think Blockware is a great place for you guys to learn more. They are the #1 mining as a service provider. They will help you with anything you need. Book a call with the link down below. You can even learn a little bit more about how you might be able to write off 100% of the money you invest into Bitcoin mining machines. Again, that big, beautiful bill that Donald Trump passed earlier in the year kind of changes a lot when it comes to Bitcoin mining. So learn more about Blockware. Could be a great way for you guys to accumulate some more Bitcoin. Now, what do you do next? Once you've accumulated Bitcoin, do you stick it on Coinbase? Do you give it to our friend Larry Fink? Oh, Larry, I'll buy your BlackRock ETF. No, you don't do that. You put the thing into a hardware wallet. Okay, I always tell you guys, not your keys, not your cheese. And again, I think this is an opportune moment because two of the biggest hardware wallet companies in the world just released brand new products for you guys to check out. So Trezor just launched the Trezor Safe 7. They spent 2 years making this puppy. It is actually quantum ready. So a lot of people say, oh, quantum computing, it's going to hack Bitcoin. It's going to take the Bitcoin out of everyone's wallets. From day one, I've told you guys, I don't think quantum is a concern. I think there are solutions, again, drastic solutions, but I think the community would band together if quantum ever happened. It's always been my stance. It's still my stance. But I do think it's kind of cute and cool that the Trezor Safe 7 is quantum ready. And it's not only that, it is so much more. I mean, have a look at how slick this thing is. It is beautiful. I did a little bit of a breakdown video for this Trezor Model 7 that I might link down below for you guys to check out if you haven't seen it. Just highly recommend you get your hands on it. I'm lucky right now. I think there's less than 200 people who have got the Trezor Model 7. I flew all the way from South America to Europe to go and check it out at the launch event. So this thing is on a pre-sale right now. I believe you can officially get your hands on one in about 3 weeks. So go and check out Trezor today. Check out the Trezor Model 7. It's their most advanced hardware wallet ever. Highly, 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 highly recommend you guys check it out. It is fully wireless, by the way. You don't need to muck around with cords and cables. No more. Highly recommend you get your hands on one of these puppies. The Trezor Safe 7, massive step up in security. Oh, I wonder what the other colors look like. Oh, yes. The Bitcoin orange is actually the Bitcoin only version. That looks really slick as well. As you can see, available November 23rd. Pre-order for 249 big ones. Couldn't recommend it more. Speaking of hardware wallets, Ledger also released another option for you guys to check out. They launched the Ledger Nano. This is the 5th generation of the Ledger Nano. I also really like how Ledger's now calling their hardware wallets signers. Is that ending the age-old debate in Bitcoin? Is it a hardware wallet or is it a signer? I like signer. It's what you do with a hardware wallet. You sign a transaction offline. So again, if you haven't seen it, I've also got one of these puppies waiting for me in my home country. I'm not going to tell you where that is, but I'm excited to get my hands on that. As you can see, slick, small, smooth, beautiful screen. Little hole in there for you guys to plug your keychain into it. Check it out. Grab any option you guys want from Ledger. You can get $10 of free Bitcoin for any of the 5 options they've got here on their website. Now, hopefully, we've got our Bitcoin in our own self-custody. Let's get bullish. I want to talk a little bit more about where Bitcoin is going next. Daniel wants me to talk about MicroStrategy. Okay, I'll talk about MicroStrategy. I might find the article. Apologies if I look distracted. I wrote an article years ago about MicroStrategy, and I was making the case it's going to be the most valuable company in the world. At the time, that was a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist take to talk about. At the time, it wasn't as well accepted as it is today that strategy is dominant, because that's what strategy is. Strategy is absolutely dominant. I wrote let me try to find it. I wrote an entire breakdown on MicroStrategy and why Michael Saylor will be the richest person in the planet. So as we can see, I had titled this, Michael Saylor stole the 1924 playbook of Germany's richest man. I've made videos on this as well, guys. I'll keep it super quick, super brief. But essentially, the richest man in Germany in the 1920s, his name was Hugo Steins. He was moderately wealthy, and the way he became the richest person in Germany was he simply borrowed in the trashy German mark and he bought hard assets. He bought businesses, he bought gold, he bought real estate. And about 3 to 4 years, as the currency melted down, he was the richest man in Germany. And you can see I wrote this article when Michael had less than 1% of the Bitcoin supply. He had 190,000 Bitcoins when I wrote this. Bitcoin just broke above $70,000 this week. So again, I wrote this ages ago. I made the case he's going to become the richest. He's going to become the richest man in the world. And look at this. Strategy held $9 billion of Bitcoin when I wrote this article. Right now, let's pull up Saylor Tracker. I believe Strategy holds $60 to $70 billion of Bitcoin. So again, big picture, I've always been incredibly bullish on MicroStrategy. Again, this YouTube channel, it's not telling you to buy stocks. I don't believe in that because you don't have sovereignty when you hold stocks. I'm 100% in Bitcoin, always have been. But I've always been incredibly bullish on MicroStrategy. So there you go. Today, they've got $70 billion worth of Bitcoin. And what's really interesting at MicroStrategy is Strategy has one of the biggest balance sheets in the entire world. I think they're up to number 5, meaning that there's only 5 companies in the world that have a bigger balance sheet than MicroStrategy. Oh, I'll find it. I will find it. Okay, I can't find it. There's a really cool chart. I show it to you guys all the time. Here we go. Google was playing runaway with the chart that I wanted to show you guys. I've got you. So we can see this here is a comparison of Strategy with some of the biggest companies in the world. Strategy's got the 13th highest net income. Strategy's got I think it's the 5th biggest treasury. And again, this is the asymmetry. This is the asymmetry present in the MicroStrategy. I'm going to call it what it is. It is a trade because you shouldn't hold a stock forever. Again, I think Michael's super cool. I've met the guy. I've interviewed him. I think he's a legend. But I don't think you should hold any stock forever. Bitcoin fixed that problem. There is no counterparty risk. So we can see here, Strategy's got the 5th biggest treasury. But here's the asymmetry. Market cap wise, so this answers your question. It's got the 96th, that's a tongue twister, biggest treasury. It floats around between, $80 and $100 billion of market cap. That's the asymmetry. We saw earlier today, was it Nvidia shot through a $5 trillion market cap? Again, let's do some quick maths. If MicroStrategy were to become the most valuable company in the world, they still have at least a 50x in it. Again, this is the maths that people don't run. A lot of people say, oh, you're late to MicroStrategy. You're late to Bitcoin. If MicroStrategy is the most valuable company in the world and it overtakes Nvidia, which I have on screen for you guys right now, it is going to be worth $5 trillion. That is a 50x. That is the asymmetry. It's the same with Bitcoin today. We've got BlackRock holding 4% of the supply, and we're at 100,000 a coin. People still looking around, it's just a speculative risk on asset. People have no idea what's going on here. What happens when Strategy gets to 10% of the supply? They're at 3. And what happens when BlackRock gets to 10% of the supply? Because they're already at 4. 2 entities with 20% of the Bitcoin supply locked up. What happens? Your power law can't predict that. That's all I'm going to say. So to your question, Daniel, asymmetry, that is your trade. You have incredible asymmetry right now. Oh, I don't do short-term price predictions. I never do on this channel. It's not what this channel's about. It's about taking self-custody of your Bitcoin. But all right, you've wrote me in, Daniel. End of 2026. What's that? 13 months. Okay. Nobody knows where the price of anything is going in the with certainty. That's a first caveat. I think my base case, Bitcoin's probably 400 by the end of 26. I'm probably 30 to 50% confident that Bitcoin tops somewhere around that 300 to 500 range. So that would mean that it breaks diminishing returns. It breaks the models. It would break the power law. I can already see this happening though. If Bitcoin will go up to 500, it'll correct. And then the power law believers will say, it's back. The power laws didn't break. It was only a temporary deviation. So again, that's 30 to 50% is my confidence interval that we break diminishing returns. Then I'm like 20. I think there's a 20% chance we go somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million this cycle. Maybe 25% chance. So I know you're asking for end of 26 price predictions. Again, I have no idea. I'm trying to give you my thought process. And maybe there's a 20% chance we top at 200. So that would mean that the power law stays intact for another 2 or 3 years. My golly, I hope that doesn't happen. So what was my base case was, let's say 300 by end of 2026. Maybe we top at 500 and we're halfway through a correction. Oh, Mike, my friend, let's talk about the supply shock. I love talking about the supply shock. So the supply shock is alive and well. And if the past 3 years of data is extrapolated 3 years forward, I mean, there's no Bitcoin on exchanges. That's the supply shock. That's what I've been talking about for years now. Again, I've never said, oh, coins left exchanges yesterday, price has to go up today. That's never been how I define a supply shock. Those people, and again, those people who believe in models and they're anti-supply shock and they're anti-Omega candle, they'll use that straw man. They'll say, oh, there's no correlation between coins leaving the exchanges and price. That means the supply shock is never happening. Straw man argument. So it's not reflected in the price, Mike. This is how exchanges manipulate the price of Bitcoin. Price is set at the margin, and the futures markets have massively expanded over the past 18 months. Could make for a video. But eventually, the futures market, they lose their dominance when there's no Bitcoin on the exchanges. When there's no real Bitcoin on the exchanges, you can't play the paper games. So this is why, again, it's been my thesis for years. Once the number of Bitcoin on exchanges hits zero by somewhere around 2027, 28, or 29, that's when you find out the real price of Bitcoin. That is the supply shock. Always has been. And I mean, hey, just quietly, since September, holy shit, over 200,000 Bitcoin have left the exchanges since September. Look at this. This is actually wild. September 10, 2.6 million coins on exchanges. Today we got 2.395. Again, I think it's happening much quicker than most people think. Again, this is always why I tell you guys, prepare. Things are going to happen really quickly. Again, I think the best way to prepare is to put your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words onto titanium. Again, we always talk about this. What's this? This right here, taking self-custody of your Bitcoin, step number 1. So many people buy a hardware wallet and they think I'm done. Pack it up, boys. I'm going to write down my 12 or 24 words on paper. I'm gonzo. No, you're not. That paper's gone if you have a fire, flood, or even a baby come across that piece of paper. Highly recommend you guys just go get a plate of titanium from Stampseed. They're super cheap. They're like 20 or 30 bucks. You can punch your 12 or 24 words into it in 15 minutes. It's a no-brainer if you've taken custody of your Bitcoin. It's really not that hard. They're going to give you a 15% discount if you use promo code Luke15. Oh, let's talk a little bit more about price manipulation. I get this question so much. So that is also true, UW. There is massive sell pressure. Let me, I know, yeah, I get it. Long-term holders have sold 1 million Bitcoin over the past 18 months. That is true. But paper Bitcoin has also expanded rapidly. I'm not going to spoil this. I'm not going to spoil tomorrow's video. I have a whole video on this topic coming for you guys about price suppression and what is actually happening with the price of Bitcoin. You can see this is one of the tabs I've got up ready for tomorrow. Long-term Bitcoin holders have sold 1 million Bitcoin since September. That is true. This is last September, by the way, 2024. I don't want to spoil any of that yet. I'm going to save that for tomorrow. I've been yapping for 30 minutes. I want to leave you guys with some signal amongst the noise. Because again, right now, markets are super noisy right now. Again, if we kind of zoom out and we have a look at Bitcoin, the reason why there's so much infighting in the Bitcoin space right now is because look at the chart of Bitcoin. First, let me take off all those distracting lines off my chart. Price of Bitcoin's gone sideways for 3 years. Really? I mean, we hit 60K in March 2021. We hit 69K in October 2021, 6 months spaced apart. Then April 2024, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, we get back to 67. And it's nearly 2026 and we're only at 110. I think the fact that we've just been going sideways here for 2 years is why I think you're seeing the space become so noisy. Because that's what it is. It's incredibly noisy right now. Again, just something else I've noticed as well. I think Bitcoin spent like 200 days above 100K. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's a top, it's all over. It's incredibly rare to see this amount of price action at a level for it to be the top. Just going to say that if we, for example, I'm going to hide all of this trash on my chart. If you go back to 2017, how many days did Bitcoin spend at 20K? Actually, look at it. It wasn't many. It was probably less than 20. Well, sorry. How many days it spent above 15? Bitcoin closed 4 days above $17,000. 4 days of price action above $17,000. Again, the top was 20. We've been above $100,000 for 200 days. I don't know, guys. I don't think that's how markets top. Even look at the 2021 fake scam pump we saw in late 2021. How many days was Bitcoin above 60K here? So Bitcoin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 5 daily closes above 65. We topped at 69. Yeah, you could make the argument. All right, we saw about 20 to 30 days of price action here at above 60K. It's a fair argument. And then we had a correction. But that's 20 days of price action. It's a lot different than 200. Just some food for thought. Just some food for thought. Something else that I was thinking about earlier in the week was this. So we all know that Bitcoin's best 10 days outperform the other 355 days combined. Now, this is most true and most exaggerated in a bull run. We know that. I want to try to find the chart. I'm going to show you guys the chart. So the purple lines is showing us Bitcoin's best 10 days. Look at the bull run years. This is 2013, 2017, 2021. It is most pronounced in bull run years that Bitcoin rips in 10 days. And most people get caught swimming naked, not positioned in the market, dilly-daddling, flipping NFTs, stuck with Bitcoin on an exchange. Again, don't be those guys. Don't be those people. Prepare ahead of time. Get your stuff in order. I think the fact that price action has been so boring, guys, for so long, and Bitcoin is fighting with each other on Twitter, I think this could be signs that maybe the more exciting time of Bitcoin could be coming soon. And maybe, just maybe, that bull run is going to come. I think it's coming. I think the next few months are going to be super wild. Again, when the next couple of months get super wild, what do I tell you guys? Never, ever, ever sell your Bitcoin Learn how you can borrow against your Bitcoin responsibly. That's why I like Firefish. They're one of the few borrowing and lending companies that openly show you where the yield is coming from. They use multi-signature vaults, open source. There's no black boxes involved. This isn't Mashinsky with Celsius or BlockFi or FTX lending out your Bitcoin. Highly recommend you check out Firefish. Great product. I mean, I've already done a couple of loans with them. I'm going to be using them a lot more to buy a home in the not too distant future. I don't want to give away too much too soon. Check out Firefish today. They're going to give you a 30% discount if you use that promo code. I think it's just Luke, Luke. Super easy to remember. It rhymes with puke. So check that out if you do want to borrow against your Bitcoin and never sell it. Again, why would you want to sell your Bitcoin and take the capital gains hit? Not a financial advisor, but something to look into. I've also got a video talking about BlackRock coming up. All I will say right now, buck 52,000, my man, long time OG of the channel, is, I think it's mispriced in the market. I think the chances of us getting a BlackRock fork attempt, I think they're rising. They're rising by the week. We did do a video recently where we showed BlackRock rolled out the red carpet, so to say, for our good friends over there in England. The country rolling out digital IDs, CBDCs, and then they unbanned Bitcoin ETFs? Really? Doesn't make sense, does it? I did do a video on that. I might actually put a link to that one. If you want to check out that video, I'll put a link to that one somewhere around there. And with all that said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. I might end this one here and wish you all a happy Wednesday night. And I'll see you all in the next one.